You're watching TelecomTV's exclusive coverage of the ETSI NFV number 9 meeting here in Prague in the Czech Republic. And joining me now is the ETSI Director General, Luis Romero. Luis, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Now, this is the 9th meeting of the NFV group within ETSI Standards Group. It's in full swing outside these doors. There's lots of workshops going on, lots of discussions, lots of people progressing the standards. But if we can go backwards, how did it all start, and how and why did ETSI get involved with NFV?
Well, it was an interesting story because a group of ETSI members, particularly operators, came across a nice idea, and they were trying to find a home for this idea, and that they wanted to standardize and they wanted the world to join them. And after looking at several possibilities, including the one of starting something on their own, they came to talk to us and put some quite stringent requirements about agility, about flexibility, how they wanted to start things. And considering we could deliver and considering we could provide what they asked for, and also that we had a very extensive membership of those who wanted or could be part of this initiative, they just gave it a go. So there we went.
So how do your standards groups work? How are they structured, and what is it that the ETSI offers and provides?
Well, basically what we at ETSI try and do is enabling that these people come together with a certain rules, procedures, tools, so that they can develop their standards. And something, again, very important is that at the end of the whole process, they are quite ensured that whatever they are going to produce is coming with a good quality. And for them, quality means it's good enough to be implemented. And we have a kind of good track record of succeeding in this, and that's why people just, well, they're used to it, so they come and want to do business with us.
Because you put specific durations on your group work, is that correct?
Depending on the kind of work, yes, it is. In this specific case, where it's all kind of a project-based, where you have an initial thought and some ideas and some implementation that you want to achieve, then what we say is, well, try and cope with a 2 years time frame. We find it's a quite reasonable time frame to do a piece of work. And then we are able to revisit it if after 2 years what you've delivered gives path to improving, increasing, doing some more, then we keep on going. But at least it's a very tight or a very precise time to stop and say and see what you've done and plan for the future.
Because as I understand it, we're in phase 2 of the NFV work at the moment. So what has happened so far, and what has been accomplished, and what is there still to do?
Actually, what was started is working around a white paper that was envisaging the virtualization of networks, of core networks. So the group started working on specific topics within the network, and at the very beginning, they were not intending to really produce standards, to really produce normative specifications, but rather recommendations on how the world should move. And at some point in time, they realized, well, but we need to have a more holistic approach to the whole experience. It's not about bringing components together. We need to know how and what are the requirements. So they looked back a little bit and said, well, let's put lots of efforts in bringing together requirements and put in an architectural framework in which all these requirements will fit and where all these components will fit. And beyond that, they said, well, and it's not just about paperwork, but we need to prove that what we are producing actually works and actually is interoperable. And which is the key word.
Exactly, which brings me on to my next question is how does this all ensure that what everyone's doing, all these different parties are doing, all works together?
Basically because we intend, or people when they are writing their specifications, they are building against the same requirement, against the same specification. Interfaces are the important part here. So they defined this framework about proofs of concept, where different companies can come together with their implementations of specific bits of the whole architecture and see that they fit together and they work with each other. So now we are at the stage where we are in a, probably if they'll hear me, and they will say, well, what are you talking about? But it's basically, well, we are starting, we have something there, and now we need to really come to standards that can be really implemented outside and brought to the marketplace.
So while this is going on, you mentioned the proofs of concept there. So it's out of the lab, off the drawing board, into a computer-based proof of concept simulation.
Right.
And that feeds into the whole standards work as well.
And that's supposed to fit into the standards work. One of the the things we do in ETSI when we have a standard is similar to the proof of concept without being a proof of concept, but it's all this interoperability testing, which means different vendors implement against a given specification. Then we need to put it all together to see whether they really interoperate, whether the specification is properly written, so that two different readers understand the same thing when reading the specification, so the interpretation is without ambiguity, driving to the same place. And if not, then we can come back and say, well, this and this and this is not clear enough, redo or reshape the specification so that things really work.
And whilst all this is going on, there are other organisations out there, aren't there, with vested interest in NFV. There's other regional ones, there's other sector-specific ones, and now we're seeing a lot of the open source community as well. So how do you ensure that there's no duplication of effort and you all work together?
It's not an easy task, and actually all this ensuring comes very much about the interest of the members who are working with us. If you look at the different organizations and then look at the composition of its membership, you will find out that probably 80% of them are sharing or are all throughout the different bodies. So it's for them and their interest not to duplicate this work. So what we do is basically, if we see a given organization that's very good at developing open source and implementing open source solutions for what we are producing for our standards, actually what we don't do is produce the same thing. It's just hand over and say, okay, they will do their part, their share of the development, and we will liaise with each other, be it through the members, because the delegates will go one place and another, and therefore work will be done, be it also through specific liaisons with the different organizations. So we have 90 or 90 plus cooperation agreements at different levels with many different organizations all over the world.
And NFV sort of interacts and has a place in various different parts of the network. For example, there's a lot of talk now about 5G, the next mobile generation, significant changes there. That, by all accounts, will have a very strong NFV component. So that's one example of how NFV proliferates. So how within ETSI do you sort of take work that is focused on the NFV group, and how does that work feed into other related works that you're doing?
NFV is essentially today at least part of what will be core networks in the future. So everything is interrelated, and when you see that fixed networks or any network operator does have regulatory requirements that are coming from governments that are being taken care of by groups in ETSI that are looking specifically at that, basically on security, for instance. Then you see that these groups in ETSI together with NFV have to coordinate their work, and one know what's going on in the other. when you go to how mobile systems are developing in 3GPP, and it's going all throughout the chain since GSM up to now LTE and probably or very probably 5G, then it's for them to understand how NFV is developing and consider that into the evolving architecture, into the new mobile system. So there will have to be a very, very close cooperation between both groups. So the output of one will be the input for the other one. And probably the learnings from the second will feed into the working of the former. So it's quite interleaved what ones do with what the others do. And that's very, very important.
So given that and the fact that NFV is going to be around for a very, very long time and will keep evolving and keep improving, what for you as ETSI Director General would be a successful outcome from the work that you do in these ETSI groups? Well,
for me, the greatest success is seeing real implementations of the standards. So when I go out to the marketplace and see that networks or devices or systems are being implemented and spread across the world following the standards we have developed, then that's the real success measure. And it will come with time, but it's very, very rewarding, I can tell you.
I'm sure it is. Luis Romero, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.